Hi, and welcome to So You Want to Be an Ally, a video presentation by Tony Beyer. This video looks at 5 different ways that we can each individually be allies to another underrepresented or marginalized group. But first things first, let's talk about what exactly an ally is. An ally is a person, group, or nation that is associated with another or others for some sort of common cause or purpose. That could be changing the world in ways of war or changing the world for better ways, like in climate change and things like that. But that could also be something a little bit more specific to individuals, which is what I want to talk about today. A person who associates or cooperates with another, a supporter in some way or another. And the key word in that is supporter, a way to support those of marginalized communities outside our own privileges and opportunities. And each of us, in some way or another, has a point of oppression, and each of us has some points of privilege. It's being aware of those that I really want to talk about and being an ally today. So let's get started. And like I said, I want to talk about 5 different ways that each of us can really, really make a difference in this aspect of things. So first and foremost, remember to embrace the paradox of tolerance. What does that mean? That means be intolerant of intolerance. Discrimination is absolutely not part or welcome of the blessed community that we exist in as religious people. And we cannot condone those moments where we are intolerant of those things that are different of us. Ergo, intolerant of intolerance. What that is in moments and situations where people make jokes about things that are at people's expense, be it racially biased jokes or sexist and misogynistic in nature. And it may be people that we're friends or family with, but we've got to call that and question the comment. It is not difficult to say, "What's wrong with you?" and turn and walk away. But there are going to be other times when we witness discrimination head on. And at those moments, we must be a powerful witness of that. We must stand with the person there, make them feel like an actual human being rather than some sort of animal worth being treated beneath it. At the end of the day, our goal is to take discrimination and completely, totally annihilate it in those sorts of moments. We do not need that in our aspects of things in our life today. End all be all, it's the entire experience of being an ally is a reminder that we are all divine image bearers. We all are made in an image of divine beauty and a diversity as well. And with that, we are all part of a blessed community because of that. We must celebrate that as a way to be and honor the divine image with which we are all made in. Number 2, in your own life, seek out diverse voices. I'm always curious to tell people looking at their social media, how many different voices do you follow in your Twitter feed, your Facebook, your Instagram even? Who are the voices that are completely different than you that you're following? And are you? Another way to look and seek out diverse voices are in TED Talks. There are thousands of them that are 18 minutes each, and people of diversity and accomplishment in their own worlds and rights. And I implore anyone to seek out top 5 voices of diversity within that. And finally, in your own life, be intentional. Actively cultivate public relationships with people that are different than you are. I'm not saying tokenizing, be aware of that. There's not a checklist of people that you get to put down in types, but I'm certainly saying actively seek out those people with voices and experiences completely different than your own, and seek out public relationship with them. But in the end, there are always ways to find diversity of voices in books, in seminars, and in listening campaigns. Also in opportunities of going to different types of lectures. Check out your social media. There are millions of different ways of people to listen to. And you know what? Go back to your own biblical understandings and see where your voice of diversity can expand out. In the end, we want to seek those diverse voices that can help us be more allied in our own lives. Moving on to number 3. This one's a tough one for many of us. We have to take a long look in the mirror, see who we are and where our individual biases are. Recognize that you do have privilege points, no matter who you are. And what are those points of privilege? Lean into the discomfort of that. When you watch those talks on diversity and inclusion, sometimes there are going to be stories that really resonate well and others that you're going to disagree with. It doesn't necessarily matter. The point is that you need to listen, listen, listen. Doesn't mean agreeing with, but you're just trying to understand a different point of view than your own. Reminder, those talks and things aren't necessarily about you personally, but more as things that groups and policies have created. Look in that mirror, see where those policies benefit you and privilege you, and be aware of those things. Number four, oh, before we go on to number four, be aware of that one good way to start with this is actually reading the book Blind Spot by Bunjanji and Greenwald. And they have done some great work. Also, with that, another good place to start is look at the implicit bias tests on Harvard University. They have several tests. I recommend taking one of those tests, being aware of the interpretation of it and where you sit in those tests, and try to avoid overreacting. You might learn some things about yourself you didn't like, but be aware of it, lean into that discomfort, and go forward as points of privilege and bias that you might have. Moving on, I will say this much. As you're cultivating relationships and as you're going out into these talks and such, you're going to find moments where someone calls you out for your point of privilege or your voice of privilege or bias. That is okay. Be aware of that. Apologize in that moment when someone says you sound like you're being cisgendered privileged there. Apologize for not acknowledging that. 2, thank the person for telling you. Thank you for pointing out my own biases there. Correct the situation if it's needed, if you can. And finally, move on in the conversation, let it go. Don't dwell upon the negative thing you said, but instead just realize someone cared enough about what you had to say to point out your own bias. It's like if someone told you your zipper was down. Apologize for having your zipper down, tell the person thank you, zip up your zipper, and move on with your day. Number 4, way to cultivate being a good ally. Use your privilege where you can. That means going to events that are of complete diversity than yours, going to a predominantly Black church, going to a mosque, going to a gathering of women's rights organizations. Depending on who and what you are, go to an event opposing, opposite of your own privilege. And when someone asks why you're there, simply say, I'm here to support you, and ask how. Remember, don't take over in those moments, though. Resist being a leader for others. Simply be present and follow the leaders already in place, supporting them. This is not your place to take over. This is your place to be of support. And finally, when inevitably this has happened to any time I've gone to various events, it happened this year when I went to the Women's March. People asked me why I'm there and tried to interview me, and a reporter wanted to put me on camera, and I simply said, I'm here to support a movement I believe in, and you should probably talk to leadership or those over there rather than myself. These are the people with the voices I'm supporting. In the end, we have to remember that privilege is something that many of us all have. And for those of us who are most privileged, that being straight, cisgendered white male, at least here in the United States, this is what privilege is for many of them. It's invisible and it's weightless, and it's special provisions and maps and passports, code books, visas, clothes, tools, and blank checks that give you or us, whoever you might be, some sort of leg up. And using that leg up is what's most important to help those who don't have that opportunity. Finally, number 5, speak inclusively. When you speak, use language that is inclusive to everyone. Do your homework. Keep in touch with the happenings and communities around you, making sure you can talk about those things. And if you've actually done some of the readings and writings I mentioned in point 2, it'll be easier for you to use proper terms and language that reflects more of what people's identities. You'll know the difference between Latinx, Hispanic, between cisgendered and transgendered. You'll notice the difference with using proper terms like he, him, she, they. You'll learn those as you go along. And if people accuse you of being politically correct, since when is it politically correct, or since when is it bad, I should say, to actually want to respect someone's way of wanting to be identified? And if someone tells you I can't keep up, honestly, what they're saying is that they can't be bothered to keep up with respecting those individuals. Just remember that the words we use are matter, and make sure that we are using the right ones in our context. Think before you speak, and look at those moments where someone says something that's so gay or that's so retarded. Call that out. Again, that is what an ally does. We're recognizing that words have power and that we have a responsibility to make sure that we are using correct language and correct speaking. Finally, let's do a quick little recap of our 5. Remember that, first of all, be intolerant of intolerance, that we need to seek out diverse voices from our own. We need to look in the mirror and take moments and opportunities to really see where our points of privilege and blind spots are. We need to use that privilege that we've got and use it to the benefit of other people. And finally, we need to make sure we speak inclusively around those folks and around other people in order to really bring out our ally moments. In the end, we want to just celebrate our own diversity as the human race, especially within the United States, and celebrate our own diversity as we go through. Thank you very much.